Hi, I'm Tom Marks with the Marks Law Firm, and welcome to the Healthy Family Law Attorney, where I believe that your family matters, and I want to provide hope and help to your family to navigate through the divorce process in a healthy way. And today we have a special guest, and we're going to talk about healthy solutions for stress reduction in the family law process. And so Renee Cherowitz is with us today. She is a licensed mental health therapist with over 20 years of experience in Central Florida, and she works with individuals and families, and she works in the divorce process. So welcome aboard, Renee. How are you?
Thank you, Tom. Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited to have you on board today because obviously my clients, family law clients, go through incredible levels of stress when they're going through a divorce or a paternity or a custody battle or something of that nature. So tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get to know you.
Sure. Well, Tom, I'm originally from the state of Michigan, and I moved to sunny Florida in the year 1992, year after I graduated from Aquinas College with a bachelor's of science. I've been married for 16 years, and I have a daughter named Elise. She just celebrated her 14th birthday a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I've been working in the mental health field at some sort of capacity my entire professional career, everything from a mental health technician to working with the Department of Children and Families, working for the Child Protection team, and as a director of the services, director of services for partners with families, as well as a licensed mental health therapist, working with inpatient clients in the hospital setting for adults struggling with addiction, anything from drugs, alcohol, co-occurring mental health issues, as well as eating disorders. And currently, I have a private practice in Winter Park where I see clients with age range of adolescents to adults. I'm a qualified clinical supervisor for registered mental health interns. And I am also trained in EMDR, a master ART therapist, and I'm currently enrolled in a 17-week trauma-informed hypnotherapy course. I co-facilitate the family and friends group for the Alliance for Eating Disorders once a week. And I currently have my private practice here in Winter Park.
Well, I think that's great that you engage in continuing education, because as professionals, lawyers do it too. We have what we call continuing legal education. And obviously there are new techniques, new areas of specialty, new ways of helping clients. So that's great.
Yes.
You know, I noticed that you mentioned the child protection team.
Yes.
And obviously that's something that gets involved in family law cases where one of the children or all of the children are at risk, or something's happened, some trauma.
Yes.
I didn't really plan on talking about that, but I think that's an interesting area. And that's where, clients can be, especially parents, stressed out with what's going on with their children. So tell us just a little bit about what you did or do with the child protection team.
Sure. So the child protection team is connected with Arnold Palmer Hospital here in Orlando. I was a case coordinator, and what that involves was DCF would get a call of abuse or neglect, and DCF would go out, do a protective investigation, and then if it rose to the level where it needed to be referred to us, then they would call for a referral. It could be anything from medical neglect, where a child has a medical disorder such as diabetes and they're not getting their insulin shots, or it could be physical abuse, sexual abuse. And I actually had a case of Munchausen by proxy, which is somewhat rare, and that was very, very interesting. So then they would call it in, and we would take all the information down. A child would come in if it's for physical or sexual abuse. For the cases of physical and sexual abuse, and law enforcement would also be involved. And at times I would do interviews for law enforcement with the recording of the tape. I'd interview the child and asking them questions to get information without leading them to an answer to get their side of the story. And sometimes they would do that for physical as well. And then with the physical, sexual, we would also do medical examinations where I would help and assist in the examination with the medical provider, and sometimes taking pictures of any physical injuries, and then writing up a report afterwards, and then sending that report to law enforcement as well as Department of Children and Families. And I've also testified in court as to the outcome of the case, the conclusion of the cases that we came up with.
Renee, you said something else that really piqued my interest and reminded me, and that is the Munchausen by proxy syndrome that you just talked about. I had a case a number of years ago with two parents. Both were accused of Munchausen, and I'm just a lay person now. So my definition is typically it's one parent that tends to try to make their child sick to get attention. So that parent is trying to draw attention to themselves by getting their child sick. Is that right?
Yes. In this certain circumstance, it was actually a mother who said her child had ADHD. And this was years ago, so I'm not even sure if this is still something that SSI disability type of thing would even cover for a child. But she was trying to have her child say she had all these symptoms of ADHD, was giving her the medication so she can get a financial gain. So it wasn't so much for the attention as for the mother themselves as it was for the financial gain. And we found it was accurate. So I'm not really sure what happens at the end of it, but that was what happened.
Well, I know it's somewhat rare, but it's interesting. I mean, I've been practicing family law for 35 years, so I have had a couple of cases. I do know child protection team gets involved. I do know that it's a very traumatic time, and in that case, let me see if I can make this short. But it was a long time ago. It was a young boy. I'd never seen a case where both parents had been accused of this.
It's unusual.
Honestly, right? That's very unusual. Well, what apparently happened, at least from our perspective, and we ended up getting the case dismissed, but the mother took her infant son in to the doctor. He came in, looked at the child so briefly that he just said, "Here's a prescription." And she said, "Well, you didn't really examine him. Can you do that, this or that?" And he's like, "No, I've got to move on." And she reported it to the insurance company. And apparently he got very upset about it and he either thought or fabricated an allegation against her. And so we had, I think it was a 10-hour hearing at the juvenile courthouse. And we're able to get the court to dismiss it, reunite the child with his parents. This will show you how long ago this one was. But that child is now, they brought him in when he turned 18 because he wanted to meet the lawyer that had reunited him with his family. And it was a really touching time. And then he did work for me for a summer. Super smart young man. He is now graduated from college and he is married. And I love those kind of success stories for my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So Renee, tell us, what do you specialize in the mental health area and helping families, going through divorce?
My specialty is trauma, substance abuse, and dependency and eating disorders. And with divorce, we say in the EMDR world, there's a small t or a little t or a big T, little trauma, big trauma. And even if it's a very amicable divorce, there's still some sort of a level of a trauma there. Because of the change and the grief that can go along with it as well. But my main specialty is in trauma.
Okay. And so you do work with families going through divorce and that the trauma and these other areas of specialty come into play?
Yes, I do. I've worked with clients from before they decide all the way to the end. Each one has their own unique set of circumstances, as you know, and going in through a divorce and just making the decision to get a divorce is very emotional. I have a client who her divorce was very amicable, was very, very, there were no children, it was fine, but it's still like, okay, my spouse is supposed to be home at 5:00 and they're not home. It's just those little nuances that happen, and it's like, oh, it's not happening anymore. So it was a change to the system. So that could be emotional for the person, and with the grief process as well, for sure.
So I'm sure you see a lot of unique challenges that your clients are going through, especially with, say, a high conflict divorce.
Very much. Yes. The most unique challenge I have with some of the clients and the families, and I see some children, adolescents mainly, and there's those types of situations where there may be some substance abuse in the home, whether it's the mom or the dad, or there's some sort of narcissistic abuse going on with one of the parents, whether it's the mother or the father. And it's very challenging navigating with that child, uh, and or the parent of the who's maybe the victim, because it's like a he said she said typically, and it's hard to prove things, and then trying to prove that in court is very challenging as well, trying to get what the best interest of the child, whether you have to put a guardian ad litem on the case or some appointed individual. A lot of the needs of the child are not addressed in the mental health aspect.
Right. That's a very good point. And it brings up the fact that the judge needs some expert testimony often to make a decision about what's going on with the minor children, because the statute requires the judge to do, quote, what's in the best interest of the minor child. And so, yes, a guardian ad litem is one of the options available. Another one is called a social investigator.
Yes. Yes.
And that person is it's authorized by the statute. I actually most often prefer a social investigator. And one of the reasons is, and I know this is all technical, but from the lawyer's standpoint, there's something called hearsay.
Yes.
And so if a minor child tells a guardian ad litem something that happened to them, one of the parents may have done something abusive or neglectful or whatever, that guardian ad litem is prohibited from telling the judge in court what the child said, because that is hearsay.
Yeah.
Hearsay, the definition is an out-of-court statement offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted. So it's something a child said to the guardian ad litem outside of the court process, or outside of the courtroom, I should say, offered to prove that it actually happened. So there's a whole lot of reasons we have rules of evidence on that.
Mhm.
But the social investigator, written into the statute, the hearsay exception is waived. So the social investigator can testify as to what the minor child has told them when they're doing their evaluation. So that's a really good point. Thank you for that. So Renee, what are some of the techniques you use to help your clients manage the stress and get through the divorce process in a healthy way?
Yes, there's many different types of techniques, and one of the things first and foremost I encourage my clients is to focus on what they themselves can control, not what they think should happen and what's not fair, because that just keeps them in that loop of that emotion when you typically a lot of anger. So focusing on what you can control, such as your thoughts, behaviors, reactions, and responses. And with that, if somebody were to say something that maybe it's the ex says something, and that person who's hearing it gets really upset, they can focus on would then be their breathing, just taking a step back and taking a deep breath, focusing on counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as they're breathing. And then also too, doing deep progressive muscle relaxation. You can do that anywhere. Nobody knows you're doing it. Just having each muscle group tightening for like 5 seconds and then releasing it from head to toe. And then
So what does that look like, Renee? Does that mean, you take your fists and you
Yep.
tighten your arms and things like
Yep.
that?
Yes. So from
Okay.
your hands, so tight 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then relax. And then your arms, your shoulders, your face, your toes. And then once you do head to toe, then you do your whole body for 5 seconds and then release. And it's very interesting. You'll notice where you're holding most of your tension. I hold a lot of mine in my face and my neck area, and I go, oh, that feels good. You can just release it. So that's a really good one, focusing on the muscles, because as you're walking around, you're holding a lot of tension you're probably not even aware of. So
Hmm.
the breathing and the muscle relaxation is really great. And
I'm
then
going to have to
also,
try that. I think
yeah,
that's a healthy tip for the family law attorney too.
yeah. And then also too, I would also recommend, since I am a master ART therapist, which is accelerated resolution therapy, is bilateral eye movement. So focusing on 2 points somewhere visually, moving your eyes rapidly back and forth, and you can even put your finger or hand back and forth if you want. Or sometimes I'll put my hand as winders and move my eyes back and forth. If I'm feeling a lot of tension in my body, and then focusing on the eyes going back and forth and thinking of some sort of a tool that can help release that, such as I have tension in my chest and it feels really tight. So I'm going to release it, like, the little air things, where you pump your air in the tire and then you're
Yeah.
releasing it, just a
Yeah.
little slowly going like that.
Hmm.
Or a remote control, like the volume, pushing it down, seeing some tool like that, metaphorical tool. And then also one of my favorites is just noticing the tension from head to toe. Like your tension is in the tube of toothpaste and you're just releasing it, and the tension is oozing out through your toes. That's a real visual.
Huh. Those are great. All right. Thank you for those. So, Renee, do you have any other healthy tips specifically you would give to family law clients going through a difficult or challenging divorce or other family law case?
Yes, absolutely. First tip is knowing you are not alone. There are individuals in different areas that can help you through the process, whether it's a friend, family member, or someone like a mental health therapist or an attorney. There are people there who know the process that can help you through it.
That's awesome. Well, I will tell you that I do make a practice of advising my clients going through a divorce or other family law matter, paternity or post divorce. It can be a modification, whatever.
Mhm.
They all tend to be stressful.
Oh,
First of all, I
yes.
tell them, let me do the worrying for you. I've done this for a lot of years. I know what the process looks like. I'm going to describe it to them. I'll let them know what to expect. I'll even like paint an emotional word picture, especially before we have an event like mediation, a
Mhm.
hearing, especially a trial, whatever. But one thing I always do is encourage them to get into counseling for a lot of reasons during the case. Number one, you got the therapist is going to be licensed. They're trained, they're master's level. Sometimes they're a PhD. And you guys really know the techniques. You have the special areas of your practice that you can really drill down and help the client through that. And also, honestly, you're a lot less expensive than lawyers. I mean, to see a therapist for an hour is a lot less than talking to your attorney about your emotional issues. Now, I will say it's important for the attorney to know what are the issues, what are the emotions, what are the client's goals, what are their fears and their angst. I believe it's important for especially family law attorneys to know that. But for the ongoing therapy and a really creative solutions, I'm going to recommend to all clients, especially ones going through a really contested or high conflict divorce.
Right. Right. Well, one
Be a
thing I could add to
therapist.
that as
Yeah,
well,
sure.
Tom, is that there's not a one size fits all attorney and there's not a one size fits all mental health therapist. So identifying the mental health therapist is really important, in knowing what their specialties are, what their experience is in, because everybody specializes in so many different areas. That's really important to do research on each individual that they may hire.
That's a really good point. I don't think I've mentioned it in any of my videos. I am the director of a group called the NADP, which is the National Association of Divorce Professionals. And it's a national group that was formed with local chapters. So we have the Orlando chapter, which I think is, if not the largest, one of the largest chapters in the country. And it's got other professionals in the group, up to 3 in each category, that support the family law process. And so, we have, realtors and mortgage brokers and financial planners and estate planning attorney, all that. But we have therapists is an emphasis because you guys are so important in the family law process. So we have 3 therapists in each category of therapists and 3 categories of therapists. So we can have up to 9 therapists. And I know you've been involved in the group. And you probably, there's 30 total categories, including all the categories. But with the therapists, there's therapists that work with children.
Mm-hmm.
There are therapists that work with marriage couples. And what was the third one? Do you remember? I think it's just marriage and family. So, and we do have in the NAP, one in our group is a social investigator. She's a therapist, but she also does that. So I think your areas of specialty are very helpful. They're critical, really, in the process. And I'm grateful that you are a resource and available.
Absolutely.
So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Tom.
It's great to have you on the channel today. And I hope this has provided some value. If it has, would love it if you would hit the like button, and especially if you'd subscribe. I'm trying to grow the channel. My goal, again, my passion is to provide that hope and help to your families, because I do believe your family matters. I do believe that if you have the right family law attorney, the right team, therapists, others on the team, it can make all the difference. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And if you have any ideas or any questions that you'd like me to do a video on, let me know. I've got several new ones planned, but I'm always looking for new information or new material that people are interested in hearing and seeing. So we're posting a new video every Wednesday at noon. And I'm also doing this interview series. So I hope this has been helpful. Thanks so much for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.